All right, it is 6 o'clock. It is January 11th, 2022 already. We'll open it up. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Bill, you want to start us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll start out with the approval of tonight's agenda. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
On number 12, it says, consider possible action on recommendation from the Personnel Committee for part-time police wages.
Mm-hmm.
The last time that they met was, the Personnel Committee was on May 6, 2021. And, there's no minutes for that meeting, but it's not what was discussed. So when did the Personnel Committee meet?
December 17th, I believe, is what it was. That's what we talked about last. And again, Amber isn't here, and there was a miscommunication between her and I. So I apologize. That's on us to not have that written up and in front of you.
But I never noticed any meeting notice at all for a personnel meeting.
I think there was. I'd have to look
Well,
back.
there's no agenda.
I'll have to look back. I don't know how to. But I know last in December's meeting, we discussed her and I meeting with Mel to go over that.
Okay, well, I just say, this is what towns gets accused of, is having meetings and the public not knowing it. And I did not even know you had a meeting on this. You know what I mean? Because I come to those meetings. So would it be right to think that maybe the board made that decision? Didn't we all just talk about that?
What are you talking about, Bill?
Number 12.
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't think we can discuss that if we say the Personnel Committee. Because I don't know them having a meeting. You never had a notice, and you should have a notice for a meeting. Okay, I mean, that's just my thoughts on it.
Anything else? Oh, everybody's good? Okay. One thing that I'm looking for in my packet here is the December 14th minutes.
Oh, sorry, they're here.
They're on the side.
Sorry,
Okay.
it didn't make the packet.
All right, sorry about that.
I'll make a motion to approve the December 14th meeting.
I can second that.
Okay, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Public comment. People wishing to address the board will be limited to 2 minutes each, with public comment limited to a total of 30 minutes. Keith?
Mr. Chairman, board members, where are we at with funding for water problems? What's going to happen with that?
We are starting some meetings on the ARPA funds and going to lay out a plan for that. We recently got the final notice from the state on what all of the rules and regulations and all that were. So later this month, we will have our first ARPA meeting and start to discuss the details on what's going to happen there. Yeah, I believe the date is the 20.
Because I reviewed the videos from the cameras going through the laterals, and that situation is deplorable, to say the least, the way it looks, and I'm sure you've looked at it, Jeremy. So
Yeah, we're gonna, like I said,
I think,
the funds will start.
all the people that have concerns on the north side of W here with water, I mean, it really needs to be looked at, so some resolution. And is there movement on anything with the state on the 4 mile?
I don't think we've had a water meeting since the last one, so no.
Is there going to be one?
Yes,
Water meeting? Bill's, yep.
yes, I'm gonna set a water meeting.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on. Monthly reports. Let's do the fire department.
Evening, board and residents. This is our report for this last month. We're currently staffed with 46 members, 5 non-structural, 6 EMS only. We're always looking for good people. Contact me or contact the town. Since the last report to the board, the department has responded to 34 calls for service, which consisted of 28 EMS and 6 fire. So of those fire calls, we had 1 motor vehicle accident, 1 false alarm, 2 mutual aids, 1 with Rapids, 1 with Nakusa. And then I listed it in your reports as just 2 calls for that power storm, but we were out all night. We basically started at 10 o'clock the night of those storms. I released everybody about 1:30 or 2 o'clock, and then we got paged out like an hour later, not even, and then we got out of here at 5:45 in the morning. So there's kind of that's why I got 2 asterisk marks on your report after that. That was basically an all-nighter there. Training, this last month for EMS, we did, cold weather coming, we did ice and cold exposures. And then last month, one of the fire trainings, we did truck and equipment familiarization. That's just where we pull all the equipment off the trucks, make sure people know how to run everything, use everything, what it's for. Myself, one of my captains, one of my lieutenants just did an 8-hour school on Saturday on dealing with the media, on media training, hosted by a couple of nationally renowned guys that run around the country, and that was well worth our time. It dealt a lot with dealing with the media. One of the instructors was a career cop and also worked for a national, he was a national consultant for Fox News. Anyways, really worthwhile, taught us the psyche of a reporter and how they like to lure you in and get you to say things you shouldn't say. And they covered a lot of the do's and don'ts of dealing with reporters and the press and the media. It was really good. So, also, upcoming trainings, as you heard me before the meeting, we're going to be training at the Lions Club doing our ice rescue refresher on February 1st, along with Wood County Rescue and Buren Fire. Public relations, our blood drives continue at Versity. Our next drives are on January 19th and 20th. The reason I bring this up, I just talked with the director of Versity yesterday, and their blood supplies are, she said, urgent. I mean, in fact, if you're a first-time donor that comes to our drive on the 19th and 20th, they're giving you a $25 gift card just for donating. Times on those dates: on the 19th, it'll be from 9 to 2. On the 20th, from 10 to 3. Never given blood, consider doing so. Other public relations for this month. Grand Rapids took a stint on doing the snow removal at the State Firefighters Memorial. We'll probably end up taking one more half-a-month slot before the winter's over with. Our smoke detector program is resumed, and in fact, we're out of them right now. I'm waiting on another shipment of those. We did 4 address signs last month, and one note, or I guess one thing I wanted to add, I don't know where it fell under. One of our members just got hired by Wisconsin Rapids. She's through all her training. She's now on a crew shift. So I always think that's a feather in our hat that Brianna Windsor is now a firefighter paramedic for the city of Rapids. She is staying on with Grand Rapids because they work 2 days on, 4 days off. So that's very cool that yet another Grand Rapids firefighters went on to the full-time ranks here after they left our department. Safety department, there were no injuries to report this last month. Any questions from the board? Yes, Patty?
Just wondering, with the blood drive, are you advertising it? How are you advertising?
I usually get the flyers from I usually kind of leave the promotion up to them somewhat. But based on the phone call I got from her, I will probably call WFHR and have them, they'll put some PSAs out. I normally put the flyers up here on the board in the town hall. And then I usually get it out on our Facebook page and the town's Facebook page.
Good. Yeah, because
So-
that, I know statewide, that is really a big issue right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And then I just want to commend you for training and, you know, how you train your personnel so that they
Well, thank you.
can become full-time. I just think that is wonderful that you do that, and Grand Rapids is known for that training too.
yep, I think there's 9 or 10 at Rapids now that came from Grand Rapids. We've got 3 at Stevens Point, 1 at Green Bay, 1 at Eau Claire, 1 at Ashland, 1 in Orange Beach, Alabama. So yeah, we've got quite a few that have went on full-time. Thanks.
Did you mention advertising? It's always on the radio whenever you have a WFHR.
Yeah, I think that Becky Brown gets a hold of Pam Hilke over at FHR and usually gets some PSAs out for us, so. But yeah, I've never gotten a call from her before going, I even put a call in across the street to the high school across the street to see if we can get some kids to come over and donate if they're that desperate for blood. So. Anything else from the board?
Thank you, sir.
All right, you bet.
Mel, Police Department.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, for the month of December, Grand Rapids Police Department handled 307 calls for service, and that compares to 319 calls for service in December of last year, about a 3.7% decrease in calls. For the year, the Grand Rapids Police Department handled 4,084 calls for service, and that compared to 4,054 calls for service during 2002, and that boils down to about a 0.7% increase in calls. Everyone should have attached a breakdown of those calls, both for the month of December and for the end of the year. Police Department issued 51 traffic citations, 3 ordinance citations, and 32 written warnings for the month of December. The Grand Rapids Auxiliary Police Helping Hands Initiative for the holiday season was another huge success through generous donations totaling $2,585 from the town of Grand Rapids businesses and individuals. We were able to assist 6 families, which included 14 children in the area. Gifts, clothes, basic needs, and food certificates were provided to the families so they could have an enjoyable Christmas. Personally, I'd like to thank the Grand Rapids Auxiliary, Sergeant Roxanne Nordbeck of the Auxiliary, and then Officer Cody Conover and Officer James Jaworski of the Grand Rapids Police Department, who oversee our auxiliary force. Also, all the volunteers that assisted with buying the gifts and wrapping gifts from the auxiliary was also greatly appreciated. In addition to that, the Grand Rapids Auxiliary provided 20 $25 Chamber of Commerce gift certificates that were passed out to residents of the town of Grand Rapids during the holiday season. Additional meetings I attended: Wood County Public Health Department, the prescription drug meeting on December 1st, Wood County Traffic Safety Committee meeting at the Wood County Highway Department of Wisconsin on December 8th. On December 21st, our new 2021 Ford Explorer patrol vehicle was completed, and it has been put into service. The 2013 Dodge Charger has been taken out of service for patrol duties and can be sold basically anytime. The town crew's already got the graphics off the side of it, so that can go on the auction block. Remaining vehicles in the department are doing well outside normal preventive maintenance and minor repairs. Once again, feel free to stop by my office anytime if you have any concerns or questions. Any questions?
Did you want to mention anything about the best Christmas ever, or?
Yeah, we probably could talk about that. That was kind of an overall town
Police, fire,
effort.
yeah.
As we all know, our town clerk, Lisa, has some medical issues, and she was nominated by one of the election workers to be the recipient of this Best Christmas Ever, and her nomination basically for the town was accepted, and I don't have the information off the top of my head.
Got like $7,500 in cash. That was-
Yeah.
That was just
I'm-
the
I'm-
last
that-
I'd read.
that was-
I'm
yeah,
trying
that
to
was
think
the
of
big game show check.
the realtor that,
It was Matt Trammell from Premier Real Estate.
there you go. He was the one that basically
Wanted to
put
start
this
this.
together and wanted to do something for the community here. This Best Christmas Ever program or initiative, whatever you want to call it, is kind of a nationwide thing, and wanted to start something specifically for the Wisconsin Rapids area. And through the generous nomination of the election worker, she was selected as the first one for this area. So it's unfortunate that we have to have that recipient from our town here, for the town of Grand Rapids, but I think it went a long way in relieving some of her concerns and that she had in going forward. So now hopefully she can concentrate on getting better and recovering from this MDS. So.
Yeah, it was great to watch. I wasn't specifically a large part of it, but it was really nice to start the holiday season watching how that whole thing unfolded and the reaction of her kids and herself and her family and stuff.
Right.
It was a pretty special thing. So I would like to thank everybody who was involved in that and made that happen. That was a great thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. For the month of December, current month receipts were $4,441,783. Current month disbursements were $207,747. Cash on hand at the end of the month was $5,373,776, with $105,895 in checking, $227,343 in the repo account, $326,722 in the money market, and $388,198 in the ARPA funds. Any questions?
Did you want to talk a little bit about your hours and how many days are left for collecting taxes?
Sure, I am still collecting taxes through January 31st, and hours will be Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4:30, and Friday from 8 till noon, and close from 1 to 2 for my lunch hour.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else from anybody? Thank you. Okay. Moving on to number 6, consideration and possible action on appointment of successor agent for the store to Melissa Wanta.
Is this for a liquor license or something like that?
This one is going to be for the agent, and then the operator license is going to be this gentleman.
Yeah, the operator license is down here. I'm not seeing a paper for the,
Yeah, for
For the
the
successor.
Melissa.
She was already approved, I'm assuming, right? In the
Yes,
previous?
Mel has approved her.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the agent for the store of Melissa Wanta, and then also to approve the 1 year, the store for Andrew Miller.
I'll second
Isn't-
that motion.
No, the
Isn't that
store-
number 15?
The store is
Yeah.
down at number
Oh,
15.
okay, down there. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, So
I'll,
we'll just approve for Melissa
make that-
Malta.
I'll correct that and remove the Andrew Miller and just approve the Melissa Wanta of the store.
Second.
Motion by Patty, second by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, approved. Number 7, consideration and possible action on resolution 22-01, public depositories. Whereas the treasurer of the town of Grand Rapids does feel that the town of Grand Rapids would, in fact, be placed in a better competitive position if all banks and saving and loan association duly licensed and insured in the city of Wisconsin Rapids were available for deposits of the town of Grand Rapids funds. And whereas the Commissioner of Banking has stated that any licensed bank or savings and loan association in the city of Wisconsin Rapids may properly be used as a public depository by the town of Grand Rapids. And whereas, according to the Commissioner of Banking, the filing of a copy of said resolution with the Commissioner of Banking gives the funds in question the total protection of Chapter 34 of the Wisconsin statutes for public funds above and beyond the federal insurance. Now therefore that the following banks or saving and loan association are designated public depository for funds for the town of Grand Rapids: Wood Trust of Wisconsin Rapids, Associated Bank in Wisconsin Rapids, Connexus Credit Union in Wisconsin Rapids, U.S. Bank of Wisconsin Rapids, Paper City Savings Association, BMO Bank of Wisconsin, Prevail Bank of Wisconsin Rapids, Valley Communities Credit Union of Wisconsin Rapids, and Pioneer Bank of Wisconsin Rapids.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-01.
Bill makes a motion, Andy seconds. We do a individual all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Number 8, consideration and possible action of resolution 2022-02, loan for $480,000 from Prevail Bank. Loan not to exceed $480,000 shall be obtained in the term of 3 years at Prevail Bank at 1.75. This loan shall be used to purchase a plow/patrol truck replacing a 2000, a used loader replacing the 1990 loader, a new fire department command vehicle, a Lucas device, which is for CPR, complete long gun refresh for the police department, road construction expenses, and general government and operations.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Patty makes a motion.
Second.
Andy seconds. Any discussion?
So this is something that was done in the budget
Correct.
meeting.
Correct. Yep. Approved through the budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 9, consideration and possible action on the purchase of a new town service truck, an approved budgeted item. The cost of that truck is a 2022 Western Star. The total amount on that is $192,482, of which we had $225,000 budgeted, so we're $37,000 under budget on that.
Can you say,
Yeah.
I thought those sheets were here, so I apologize, I wasn't writing when you were giving the numbers. Could you repeat which numbers for me?
Which numbers?
Your quote?
Oh, you know what, I can give you a copy of it.
Okay.
I'll just take a look at it.
That's our normal warranty that we get
Mm.
done?
Yep, license and titles included in that.
Okay. And this is the one that Rick had suggested then?
Yeah, yep, and that's available for delivery immediately. We were thinking that was gonna take quite a while, but
Yeah.
this is like the last one in the state.
Okay, so he's happy with this?
Yes.
And this is what he
Yep,
envisioned?
it's exactly what he and Mike had hoped and wanted.
Is there any additional equipment that is required to, is this ready to rock and
Yeah,
roll?
other than sideboards, but you know, that's pretty minor stuff. So, but otherwise, that should be able to go out on the road once they get I think they have to put lights on it. I'd have to double check on that.
Okay, that was my other question.
Yeah.
Because lights can end up requesting.
A little
but,
bit.
you know,
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a new truck.
I'll second.
Bill makes motion, and he seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 10, consideration and possible action on Chief Peterson attending a midwinter training conference in the Wisconsin Dells, February 6th through the 9th.
I'll make a motion to approve the training conference for Chief Peterson to go.
Bill will second. Any discussion?
I had heard that, you were starting to cancel some of these larger meetings in the Dells. Have you received any notification?
No.
Okay,
As of today, it's still on.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I had one canceled in a couple of weeks
Yeah.
down there, that they were nervous about stuff, but, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Consideration and possible action of future election inspector appointment.
This is one that was taken up at the last meeting.
This was a carryover from that, yep.
Right,
I'll make a motion to approve.
I can second.
Any discussion?
When I was speaking to, Tom Heiser last night, he
Mhm.
indicated that, he knew, there were actually 4 people on that list, and 3 people had received notification. He did not speak to the 4th one to see if that person received, notification that
Okay.
he's been accepted or turned down.
Okay.
But I asked him if he/the Republican Party was okay with that, with what had transpired, and he said yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Consideration and possible action or recommendation from Personnel Party for part-time police officer wages. This again was a carryover from the December meeting. Amber and I met with Chief Peterson, went over different scenarios, amount of hours needed, training, looking at the amount of training, money that was spent on training in the past, over the past years, and the majority of that budget, and that budget has been consistently, that particular item has consistently been over budget. And we discussed whether it was based on just not giving enough to that item or what it was. And it seems training is a big part of it. So what we kind of thought we would do, as I handed out, and I apologize for the chicken scratchings, with what we're going through in the office here. Some things have fallen through the cracks, but we will get it fixed up with no problem. So we are looking at, untrained people that need training, starting out and running at what was recommended at $17.65 as a new recruit. And they would stay on that until they are considered fully trained, which Chief Peterson feels is 1 full year. If somebody comes on that he feels is fully trained with 1 year or stays on after being trained for 1 year, that person on the anniversary of that 1 year would move to $19 an hour. Somebody that's got 2 years in would be to the $20 an hour mark, and the 3rd year would be at $21 an hour. And 3rd year and beyond are considered fully trained. And the other thing is, if Chief Peterson brings in somebody that he considers as fully trained, they have time that they have to do administrative training. And while that administrative training time is going on, even though they are fully trained, they would be at the $19 an hour also. And once that administrative training, then they would jump up from there at whatever year they're at.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, I have one question. Could we just get the numbers for what the current one is? I don't recall from our last month's meeting. Is the current rate? Do you know that?
I
No?
don't.
The current rate?
The current rate, last year's current wages were $17.26 starting. Beginning of the second year, it went up to $18.23. And then the beginning of the third year, it went up to $19.19.
And what was presented in December would be a 2.3% increase, so that 1726 would have gone to 1765. The 1823 would have gone to 1864. The 1919 would have gone to 1963.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
So if we're looking at a fully trained as if somebody comes in and they maybe work for another department and have received training and you don't have to go through a full field training program, that would be what would be considered a fully trained?
Right, once they get done with our FTO syllabus, and depending on who the individual is, if they're coming in with no experience, the FTO program, takes a little bit longer. But if it's somebody that works for another department and it's just a matter of them getting familiar with our administrative paperwork at our end, that's very short. And then once they've completed that and we've deemed that they are now eligible to start filling shifts without having an FTO there or some type of supervision, that's when they would go up to at the $19 dollars an hour for when they're actually filling shifts for us, yes.
Okay. And we're right in the ballpark with that, with neighboring agencies?
Port Edwards is at 20. Nakusa just went up to 28, so we are still behind. This will go a ways in getting us caught up, but we're still lag behind. Basically, our two main, I wouldn't say competitors, but other agencies that also have a part-time staff here in Southwood County, we're still behind in that aspect.
That was all my questions.
Okay.
So, with your meeting that you had, how much of an increase was this then with the hours? Like if we go with the proposed rate, and then what he figured for hours and, budgeting, what was that?
The way we looked at it is we're hoping to be more competitive is that he's able to get people that he doesn't have to train. So we're actually saving hours that way. You know what I mean? Instead of bringing somebody in, like we've got one here that came in and needed 808 hours of training to get him up to be a fully trained. Hoping that with us being more competitive, with more police departments, surrounding police departments allowing their officers on their downtime to come and help out these guys, they don't have to spend as much time with training guys basically riding along. They're able to plug and play those police departments in here. I mean, what's needed is about, in a perfect world, 530 hours is what's needed to fill in for vacation and part-time.
Okay.
That's what we have. But in 2020, there was over 808 hours just in training, much less the 530 that was needed to cover the officer's vacation, increased presence, all that stuff.
Okay, I see you have a chart there. Would you be so kind after the meeting for me to?
Mhm. Mhm.
There was another question I had. Oh, so with this being said, then next year, or 2022, we can say that we're not going to be over budget like we have in the last, well, for sure last year, I'm not quite sure. I think we were over budget again last year too.
Yep. And like I said, the last 2 years were COVID and the one extenuating circumstance that put it quite a bit over budget. But when you look at over the last 4 years, I believe we looked at, Mel, they were all over budget, because the first 2 years, I think, was like $10,000 budget in there. It was considerably low.
Yeah, I went back all the way back to 2013, okay? And getting to your comment, Patty, there's no guarantees, okay? We've had an officer out now most of January with COVID, okay? And, so we're already starting this year out on the wrong foot, as far as having to have part-timers filling those vacant shifts. And so, this will go a long ways. It'll make it easier to stay within the budget constraints for that particular line item. Hopefully, like you said, with the increase in hourly wages, we'll be able to attract more qualified people that won't take as long to get up to speed to the point where they can fill shifts without having a field training officer with them. And hopefully we won't have any of those 800-hour training hours for on any one particular officer. So one interesting thing here is since 2013 we've had 14 officers we've had through training, and all but 3 have completed it. I think that's a significant, that people that we are bringing on are staying with us and getting to the point where they're fully trained and up to speed and able to fill shifts for us. But then it becomes a matter of how long we can keep them, sometimes not as long as we'd like to, but.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, and from the report, which I'll get later, that's why I'm asking, because I didn't see the numbers and I'd asked for the numbers prior. And apparently there are numbers there to be reviewed. I just want to make sure that we did our due diligence, that we're not just shooting from the hip and setting you up for failure again. I understand there's circumstances that are out of your control as far as people being sick and whatnot, but I just want to make sure that we looked into all those scenarios.
We've
We've
crunched a lot of numbers.
Yeah, we've really rolled over the numbers, and a big thing that was pointed out was just the under budgeting amount. That if, in a perfect world, if he had all trained officers, that the amount of hours that were needed, what was budgeted prior to the last few, would not have even been enough to cover the needs that he had. So I think that us increasing the amount there, hopefully attracting more trained officers with them, you heard Nakusa's 28 and other people are up here also, but if we can attract them and keep them here, we'll actually buy hours by bringing in fully trained.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any second? Any further discussion?
I just want to make one comment that I
Yep.
think we're headed in the right direction, but I still think we're low. And I like to see this in the right direction, but I think where we're really gonna, from my experience, where we're gonna really save is when we can actually establish part-timers that are consistent and gonna stay. and not be the training ground. And really the best way to do that is to be competitive. And we're gonna circle, well, this is gonna be an issue, I think, continuing on even maybe where we're at, just because I think other people are gonna go probably to where there's more money. So hopefully we're headed in the right direction. I'd like to see it be something we discuss maybe next year. Well, not even more.
Yeah, and I would like to say, Nell stands up here and gives his report, and it's very black and white, and we see what the numbers are and everything, and what's really nice for the community around here, when I talk to people, they don't see the gray that goes in there. They don't see the issues that these guys deal with. A guy my size who's had a few too many beers, who's got muscles, and these guys have to go deal with them. They do a great job of taking care of this community. And like I said, I think if you ask a lot of people, they have no idea a third of what these guys deal with actually happens. They think Grand Rapids is a quiet, safe community, and it is, because of these guys and Mel and his training. So I will thank that. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
I will be abstaining from this because this is very illegal. This is a meeting that we're approving that was never had. It was never advertised for. I can't even believe we're doing this, so I'll be abstaining from voting.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstain. Okay. Moving on. Consideration of possible action on building inspection services. This goes back a few meetings ago. Former Chairman Arnie had reached out to our current building inspector, I want to say in June, and asked for the current building inspector to bring reports up to date. We had not seen anything, so in October, I had reached out to the building inspector and asked him to bring up reports up to date and get us all the information that was needed. Gave him a date of January 3rd to get it in. I believe it was about January 6th. He dropped off reports, but they are just basically inspection reports. We're still waiting on more information. He dropped off a thumb drive with 80, I believe it was 84 reports, inspector reports from 2020, and 72 reports, inspection reports from 2021. Don't quote me on those numbers, I'm close, but I'm going off of memory, looking at the stick. So we've got some more information that is needed and he owes, but I think it's something that we need to discuss. Nick, I don't know if you've got something more to...
Well, I would
add.
just state that the inspection reports, as I reviewed them, were more very general. Ones that would really be more specific for the property file that would exist. The items that were listed in requesting from the building inspector were as follows: a list of inspections from 2020 and 2021, a report on the building inspections in 2021, including year-to-date total number, common violations requiring re-inspections, what exactly is being checked, and then a report of any recommendations that the building inspector would have for town board consideration. Of course, that is the idea or intent behind that last one, because it sounds general. The intent behind that was to be proactive, right? And not, so if there are items that are needing consideration, we can account for those potentially in our building code or in just our administration, right? And how we approach things. And so I think that we were clear in what we were asking for, and the inspection reports are helpful from a property file perspective, but we're not a report that generally that the board would be expecting.
So what does this contract go to? Can we consider him in violation of his contract?
So his contract is year to year. So it technically goes until the end of the year. There is an expectation, as we request certain things, that he provide those to him. That said, the way his contract is set up, I mean, it's set up to bill for what, piece by piece what he's doing, right? So if we're not sending anything to him, he could still be under contract and he just isn't doing anything for us. I don't want to get too into detail with breach or not breach, but if there is still a desire to have something from him, I think at a minimum you need to inform him that this was inadequate and what our expectations are.
Okay, thank you.
So is there anything that, let's say it is, we deem them, I haven't seen any of the reports, but we deem them inadequate. He bills us according to what he is doing. So can we not pay him for that part, like hold his paycheck hostage till we get what we need?
So, and I can't say specifically because I don't get his bills or review his bills.
Okay.
But I do believe that he bills just the whole, for the same reason that we had amended our ordinance, our fee schedule to really mirror his bills, right, the way he bills, is because as he bills, it's broken down in that same exact way. And so, in answering your question, the answer is if he's billing on work that he's done, right, that, and calculated, in the same way that our fee schedule is, then I don't think you can withhold it. I don't think we have a requirement in his contract that he submit a inspection report along with each item that he bills for.
And I think that's kind of a problem, is that it's the bill, but if we don't necessarily demand the full paperwork beforehand, I think that's kind of a hole in our process. Because to me, unless you've got the whole loop tied up real nice and clean, to me it's not considered. Because I'm sure there's banks who say, I don't have my things finalized, or people are living in places that haven't had the final inspection, and if something happens, where does that fall?
Right.
Last thing we want to do is go out and tell people they can't live in their new house because not everything's finalized. So let me clarify. So when I'm answering what I just answered, it is when I was answering it by way of, so let's just say he doesn't give us an inspection report and he's billing us for a specific property. That part of it, I don't think that is a requirement under his agreement. What could be, and maybe should be, I don't know how detailed his invoices are, it's perfectly reasonable if you're reviewing his invoices and they're not related to a specific property, or they're just too general, that you all don't feel that you can approve a payment before you get clarification. You can absolutely ask for that. That is a common sense expectation. If you're reviewing his bills before you approve them and they are too general for you to form a conclusion that he's performing work that he needs to be doing and that we're paying him to do, you can ask him to be clearer on it. That's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, so could we, on our monthly agenda, just have a line item just for approval of his inspection or, his work? And if something is not acceptable to us as a board, then we don't sign the voucher to pay. We don't see these invoices, but yet we should, because of the fact that, that's what we do every month on these sheets. They're listed, but, with him, everything that we approve on our vouchers has you know, a line item, a detail, an explanation, but with him, it's like just his name and this is his money. So maybe we need to have a month, every month, this needs to come to us as a board and we review them as a voucher to pay. And if it isn't acceptable, then we kick it back.
You can absolutely do that. I would just add that if you are going to review it and have an expectation of something
Right.
to, you know, in order
have to let 'em know.
to qualify as acceptable, or you're going to kick it back as unacceptable, you need to communicate that to him. I don't know what his invoices look like, if it's just general with a summary, or general with a sum. I don't know. And so if you have an expectation, I think that should be communicated to him.
Can we have a meeting set that
His
we can?
invoices do list like the homes that he's working on, but as far as like inspections,
Right.
I don't know, I don't get those, but I do see that he lists, like the addresses,
Mhm.
but as far as like inspections, nothing is with that.
Okay.
Just like,
Do they come monthly?
yes,
Okay, so let's see a breakdown of that month specific?
right, but it's just listing, I only see addresses is what I see.
Right.
As far as inspection reports, I would imagine that Peggy gets those.
I'm completely on board with you, Patty. I think there has to be some sort of an SOP that basically
Right.
he.
This is your checklist.
This is what's expected. We all understand fully this is what's
Mhm.
expected. It's in writing. This is what we got.
Doesn't match.
They match or they don't match.
Mhm.
And until we get what is stated on this sheet that you're agreeing to do and we're agreeing to pay you for, you're not gonna get paid. I
Mhm.
agree. I mean, that's how you motivate somebody, and
Right.
I think this is sort of fell through the cracks a
Yeah.
little bit longer than it should.
Right.
And I think that we need to figure something out, whether, yeah.
Can we have a meeting like soon with the board and maybe invite Peg, our administrator, and then, I don't know if Amy, you would like to, as far as join, as far as invoicing part goes, and we can come up with a SOP for this process, and then we should probably have Dan at this meeting right away, just so that we can kick it around to see, so he has an understanding what his expectations are, so we can all succeed.
Is that something we could add to the legislative? Would that fit underneath that committee? We're all gonna be here. Anyways, can we make that an agenda item?
You can make anything an agenda
Yeah.
item, I suppose. I mean, the
Right.
legislative committee is a meeting of all of you as board members, so.
It's gonna be long to begin with
I think-
already, though.
I think, and this is a question for Nick, I don't know, too, as far as like how we may want to deal with this. I like the idea of having a meeting and discussing it, but I almost don't like the idea of inviting him quite to that meeting yet. I think we should come up with a plan of what we're looking for and how we're gonna do our thing, and then we could maybe communicate that with him either in a meeting or a letter that Nick could draft, matching our expectations of what we're looking for the documentation and the lack thereof that we've received in this. And then we try to bring him on board to get the information that we need, and, we have to adhere to the contract and what we're looking for. I guess, Nick, is that appropriate to you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, I don't want to misstate what you're saying, but I think what I'm hearing is that the same thing I was thinking, which is that this meeting that you're talking about is to discuss and have an idea to communicate to him the expectations on his invoice. Not necessarily something that is in or isn't in his contract. He's invoicing us for work that he's doing under his contract based off of our fee schedule. And if you're wanting to review those month to month and see certain things in there, then having that meeting and then communicating that, whether it's him at a future meeting of your board or by a letter, that avoids some confusion, because part of that is just going to be brainstorming, discussing what exactly you expect. And that could get jumbled when you have him trying to understand what are you wanting from me, right?
It could become confrontational. I don't think we want that approach. I think we need to figure out first what we want to do. And I think we're discussing this now, but I think Peggy needs to be at the table,
Mhm.
and Amy and some input on invoicing, and I'd like to be able to have the opportunity to maybe review the reports that we've actually received, and
Right.
then talk to Peggy about what our expectations and what, some historically, what we've seen in the past and how we've done things, and kind of get a little bit more information before we proceed with what our expectations really are. I think we're shooting from the hip right now, and I think we should have a meeting specifically to discuss this, and I think Peggy should be there for that.
Indeed.
And I think we should have his contract there to see what's expected of him.
Well,
And the reports he's produced, so we
yeah,
can see what.
so
that
we
looks
can
like.
make a good decision. So
Okay, so
we
we
can just
will-
put that on future agenda item?
Yeah, I think that we'll set a date.
Mm-hmm.
I think that should be handled sooner than later because it's
Right.
gone on long enough.
Yep.
In the meantime, I'll see if Peggy, you don't want a copy of the whole reports because they're all pretty much the
Pretty
same
much the
thing.
same.
And they say very little, to be honest with you. So if you look at one or two, that's basically the extent of what these reports are. So I can have her get a couple of copies, put them in your baskets, and a copy of what's expected. So we all have that to review ahead of time, and then we'll figure out a date that works for everybody. Maybe later this month.
Then
I know
I'll-
next week was kind of busy for everybody, but we'll see if because I don't think it'll be a terribly long meeting, but if we've got a lot of information ahead of time, and I think we're all kind of on the same page of what direction we want to go, it's just details.
Yeah, and then I can also reach out to Peg, just to see if she can brainstorm, write up some ideas of what her expectations are. And then, would it be inappropriate that if it does come to negotiating or renegotiating, or we can change the contract at any time, or is it specifically in the contract from first to the end of the year?
Our contract with him is January 1 to December 31. That doesn't mean that we can't enter into a new contract.
Okay.
I will just say that when we did go through a RFP process, interviewed and went with a building inspector, his contract was his contract in that regard.
Yeah,
I remember that
it
too,
was.
yeah.
To the extent that it wasn't even editable by me. So his contract is his contract. If you don't like his contract, that's a different thing altogether than what we're talking about.
I think
We're not talking about whether you like his contract or not. We're talking about he's billing you for work he's doing under your contract. He is invoicing you in some way. You haven't seen that yet, I guess. And whether or not you want more information on those invoices before you feel comfortable in approving his invoices.
Yeah.
My last building inspector, we used to pay him $2,000 a month. I believe that was it.
So there's no motion on this at this time?
I think we're tabling it to a separate meeting,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I think in the minutes, we'll just note that we're gonna have a separate meeting, and we'll figure out a date. I'll send out something in the next day or two as far as what a date works, and we'll get something settled. In the meantime, we'll get the information that everybody needs to.
Do you need a motion to table it or anything?
I don't think so, it was just kind of,
No
there wasn't
action.
any real action, or, you know.
I would just
think
note it as no action. We can mention it again in future agenda items. I didn't want to speak out of turn to the agenda item, but I will have something to update you on as well, so we can have a little bit more discussion about this one on that item.
Okay.
Okay. December disbursement vouchers. Motion to approve those.
We just circulate the papers to
Yeah.
sign.
Oh, yeah. sign that.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I didn't
That
even,
would be something we
Yeah, we
haven't
just-
done.
yeah.
When you sign that.
yeah, you don't
you're
need a
approving.
motion, yeah.
Okay, moving on, number 15 is operator license. We have one of those, looks like Andrew Miller for the store for 1 year. Motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
passes. Monthly reports, Public Works, we did not meet.
Oh, before you move on, were you gonna comment about it? I thought you were gonna move on.
What's that?
About Public Works.
Oh, we didn't meet.
Right, so I just wanted to, this is the time of the year to be able to cut branches, especially like the oaks around here, not to spread the disease of
Well-
oaks, yeah. So I'm just wondering, are Public Works guys working on those kind of projects right now? I know they're snow plowing, but I mean, I just noticed that there was a road that we can talk about later, but the trees are starting, the limbs are starting to come out into over the road right away onto the blacktop,
Okay.
where vehicles are actually going in the other lane so that the branches don't scratch their taller trucks, so.
Okay, all right. Yeah, please let me know what
Yeah.
road that is. I haven't heard anything on that, but yeah, and I will pass that on
Okay.
for sure. Airport Commission, that meeting was canceled due to very limited agenda items. Recycling, solid waste, and water.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have a meeting, but I was wondering if Lampert Lee has sent in a report in or
I haven't,
anything.
I'm gonna reach out to Larry. I was kind of waiting to see what
And
we
I
were
kinda
gonna
have
do
to
for a
have
meeting.
that,
Yep.
and see where we are with
Yep,
that.
he had the video and he was gonna put it against the map, so I will make a point to reach out to Larry.
And on the recycling and solid waste, one of the things that I talked about is the Harper funding, and like you had indicated that last Friday, the rules come out, and on the county level, we also talked about it. There's 14 million on the county unit that's getting, and all the municipalities in Wood County are getting roughly 21,500,000. So that's going, and is what we're gonna do is have a meeting at the county level, maybe from some town officials and city officials, and then, Lance Primo is the one that's going to set that up, so I'm gonna make sure, people get invited to that meeting, because there is a chance to work water together, especially in our situation where we put it into Lake Wazeecha, and from Lake Wazeecha it goes to Nepco Lake, and then from Nepco Lake, of course, it goes on, and so it's, what I'm trying to say is that the village of Port Edward have put $250,000 a year for the next 5 years into water studies. And so.
Is that based on nitrates or?
Nitrates,
or-
and now there's other thing. One of the biggest things coming up for the county is the lead pipes in the cities, you know what I mean, and using ARPA money for that. So, because the water issue was passed, clean water was passed in the town and in the county by 87%, I think water should be looked at. Okay, and I'm kind of wondering about, the report from Lampert.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I have.
Planning Commission,
Oh, yes, we met last night, and one of the things that we did in preparation for the legislative meeting is discuss the building area calculation and the setback measurements. And then what we're also going to do is review some more of the projects that we have in line. As an example, review the split zoning on parcels. And also, we're gonna review our ordinance in regards to permissible usages on different parcels of land. So we're gonna make sure that those permitted uses are, match what our comprehensive plan is. Is that everything, Nick? Nick was there too.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
those are the upcoming
Mhm.
projects. There are more that were previously discussed. I would just make a note, you had referenced it. The Plan Commission did make a recommendation to Legislative Committee now on both the setback measurement and building area square footage. So that will be on the next legislative committee agenda. It was in a previous agenda, but it was referred to the Plan Commission to review and make a recommendation. So we will make sure that you have all of their information in your packet, as well as the proposed recommendations for adjustments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public buildings?
I just want to say something about public buildings. I'm not the chairperson of that, Amber, but I was wondering on the issue I handed to you about the refrigeration place and what's going on in this garage. Did you get a hold of these people that are right over here?
Yeah, Ron's refrigeration.
Ron's refrigerator.
I've got to follow up with them. I never got a call back, so I'll follow up.
Oh, okay. And because I don't know what's going on there, I did get those 3 estimates, and so,
Yeah.
and I have gotten several calls from those people, and I just said it's on hold right now about it, so. And
Yeah,
I did
'cause
receive
it-
something from Patty on
And I know
some of
that
that stuff.
they were extremely high compared to what was budgeted, so.
Yeah.
Okay, legislative will be meeting later.
26th.
This month.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
26th.
Public safety, I think that's Amber, right? Economic development. Did you guys have that?
Has not met.
No meeting, okay. Personnel, beat that meeting to nauseam. WTA, that was canceled, right, Bill?
Yes, that was canceled. The January 20th meeting was canceled, and I won't know until tomorrow about a February meeting. But what it is that Arbondale has canceled that meeting, and they don't want to be on the next month. They want to keep their rotation in. So the town of Cameron is next, and they're having their meeting tonight to discuss whether they're going to have one or not.
Thank you. Reports from individual town board. Andy, anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Patty, anything?
I don't think I do have anything. The only thing I was thinking about with our individual reports, I know one of the things, we didn't get any of the vouchers for the supervisors. We usually get copies of those
Email.
in our packets.
Yep.
And then I didn't know if this is something that you would like or not. You can think about it. You don't have to answer about it. But I thought having a chairman's report, that if you go to, you get a phone call or inquiries or something. I mean, like I said, you don't have to answer about it, but I think it would be beneficial because some of your conversations could spike.
The blood pressure?
Well, no, yeah, it totally could do that.
They do.
But just to maybe brainstorm and come up with ideas and being proactive and so, just a thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bill?
Well, and just to follow up on her chairman's report, it's great because I've seen a lot of different cities, counties, towns, and villages. Well, once a chairperson puts that report in, it becomes an item to discuss about. There can be motions made about it, unlike what we're doing here, where there can be no further action. If it's on the report, your report is, anything that's written on there can be discussed and acted on.
Okay.
I was wondering, did the chairs sell out here, or who's gonna put those up for sale?
I don't know anything.
The old wooden
about-
chairs.
Yeah,
Oh.
we talked about it, we have not done it yet.
You have not. And the other thing is because this was locked up during truce to reuse time, there's stuff out there on the table I think I'm supposed to get rid of. Is that true? Anybody know about it? That all those baskets and those screens and stuff like
Yes, we did
that?
talk about it.
And those pens, I have somebody will take those pens, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we can look at it and see. There's stuff.
I mean, it's just sitting out
Yeah.
there on the
Yeah.
table. And
Right.
Yep.
I was told I could take that to choose to reuse, but it was locked up and I couldn't get it.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know what you're
So
talking
what
about
are
there.
pens?
The pens that you used, now is all
For the
people
election.
do, it's so you don't get the COVID, you had to use your own pen, and then they were all, but now you can just spray those pens with something and and they're all usable. you know.
Right.
But I did talk to Lisa about that, and she said, I don't want those pens.
Okay.
And the county don't want those pens, because they got about a bushel basket full of them. So, but I mean, I can get rid of those.
Yeah, but if it's
that's
not,
what
if
you
it's
want.
not needed, coming up with election time and everything that's coming, we need that room, so, yeah, if it's not needed, let's get rid of it.
That's all I got, thank you.
Okay. I will definitely look into the chairman's report, and try to bring something to the table on conversations that I'm having. I again would like to thank everybody involved with the Best Christmas Ever. Like I said earlier, that was really great to see, and a lot of efforts from people, and it shows the kind of community we have and what was given, and hopefully next year, if somebody is picked from this community, we can do even better. And I know, Keith, you and your group had a great Toys for Tots thing, so that's all good stuff coming out of here. We've got a lot of good people, so I'd like to thank everybody for that. So, public input, once again, people wishing to address the board will be limited to 2 minutes each, with public input limited to 16 total minutes. Anybody? Go ahead, Keith.
Okay, Shirley Clapper. Back to item 12. You said you met December 17th?
I would have to look back.
And what
exactly
time?
the date is.
You don't know? What time?
It's like, no, I don't.
Oh, you don't know. Okay, my problem with this is that it's an open meetings violation. And clearly, if this meeting was not noticed, it's an open meetings violation. And we cannot, if most of the board didn't even know what the results were of that meeting. I mean, and not only that, but I would have hoped when one supervisor brought this item up, that we have the attorney here, that, Mr. Chairman, you could have turned to him and asked his thoughts about whether or not this board could have acted on something that was clearly an open meetings violation. And if this is done one time, if somebody thinks that this is a good thing and they don't have to notice a meeting, I'm afraid that we're going down a slippery slope. So it's a clear open meetings violation as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Keith Lukey, is there a final report from Lampert and Lee?
That's what will be. I'll get that from them, and we'll do it at the water.
I mean, they've had plenty of time to present that. We paid them, I think, and
Yep.
we should get some finalization from what they have to say about
Yep.
the situation.
Yeah, like I said, we'll present that at the water whenever that meeting is. We'll
All right,
present it
thank
at that meeting. I'll get it. Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll move on. Future agenda items. I think the one thing we have is the building inspector action.
Well, if I could,
Anything else?
I'd like to just update the board on the Grand Rapids Saratoga Municipal Court.
Yes.
So, as of January 4th, 2022, we have not received any judicial candidates filing for the joint municipal court judge position. We do have, as you're likely all aware, we have a current judge services agreement in place with Judge Grace that runs until April 31st, 2022. There was a very formal process to that, part of which included the district court approving that before we got to an actual agreement that we put in place. So after April 31st of 2022, there will be a vacancy unless there is somebody written in that qualifies for that office, both by statute and by our ordinance. There would be a vacancy in that office, and that carries with it certain very important considerations, because it doesn't just mean one thing. Obviously, it means that we don't have a judge there, but for the future of the court, it means a number of things that could possibly happen that I think are important considerations. Internally, the court clerk, myself, and the attorney from Saratoga have spoken with the district court, and the reason we did that internal conversation, that was at the district court's request actually, was to understand our options, and it's not because we don't know our options. I think both myself and Saratoga's attorneys knows the general options, but some of those options include the blessing by the district court, and that is why we had the conversation, so we could understand what was or wasn't going to be okay from the district court. And that's because part of what our current judge agreement is in place for is what they call extraordinary circumstances. Well, so we're currently under extraordinary circumstances that we have a judge that we have under an agreement, and so we wanted to understand what the district court's intention was, so we could then relay to our respective municipalities the options. My understanding is that Saratoga's board was informed in this same way at yesterday's meeting when they met by their attorney. I have not heard the result of that conversation. In fact, I know our court clerk had followed up with them, still hasn't heard the result of that conversation. What I'm doing in giving you this report is to give your wishes regarding next steps. What I mean by that is, would you like to have a joint meeting with Saratoga to go through the options that exist and talk through a plan to move forward? Or what would your wishes be? So again, I give that report because it most definitely will concern a future agenda. I want to make sure you're all aware of that. And then if you would like to have a joint meeting, we can then discuss a date, a proposed date, so we can communicate that back to Saratoga and keep this moving. Because again, we do have a sunset here, and once that sunset happens, it triggers certain things. At a minimum, it triggers a dormancy in the court until we would get a judge in place. If we do get somebody written in that qualifies by ordinance or statute, that's great, but if not, I think we really need to have everybody be understood as to what happens and give some guidance to both myself and Saratoga's attorney on next steps.
I have two questions. So, does it have to be a resident of the town of Grand Rapids?
It has to be a resident of either
Town
of Grand Rapids or town of Saratoga.
Does it have to be an attorney?
By our ordinance, it has to be somebody that's licensed to practice law in the state of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we get some dates set, or try to establish a meeting with Saratoga.
So, to that, it doesn't even necessarily need to be a motion at this point, just let's talk about that. We have two dates that are planned. We have the 25th is a meeting date that potentially could have, so we're meeting at 6 o'clock. Would you like to kind of put a 5 o'clock meeting with Saratoga on one of those dates, since we're going to be there already? I mean, that would be...
How long do you think this would take? Do we need to sort of plan an extra hour and a half? I mean, how long do you think I know that you've had a bunch of preliminary discussions. It's just kind of a...
Yeah, I mean, it will be a overview with both governing bodies on what options exist after talking with the district court, and then getting some consensus from the boards. And so it's hard to say. I mean, I don't. If I give you an answer that's seen as too short, it feels like it minimizes the importance of this, and it's very important.
Yeah.
So
No,
I feel like an hour would probably be adequate, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I wanted to make
What I
sure
would
we had
say.
enough scheduled. I didn't want to cut it short
Would
and have to rush
we
through.
meet here? Would we meet there? Would we do Zoom/meet here?
Well, if we're doing it on a day that we're gonna meet here with a meeting anyways, I think we just prefer to host a meeting if that's agreeable to Saratoga to show up. I mean, we have to check with them, I assume, Nick, on whether that date works or not.
Yeah.
I think that the most important thing is we need to do this soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think Patty's idea, we could go over to the fire station and use the TV, and they may not have to make the trip all the way here. Maybe they can meet where they normally meet, and we meet over there and tie into the TV and have a general conversation. You know, I'm under the impression that what we need to do is move forward, like, we're not gonna have anybody to write in, and this is gonna have to go into a dormancy, where if we do find a candidate that would step up here and we could write them in, then it's very easy just to continue what we're doing.
If someone were to be, if we had two individual, or two write-ins for an individual that qualified by ordinance and statute, then we have a judge. Then it's a moot point. This is so everybody is understood as to what happens in the event that we don't have a qualified judge,
Right.
and the options that exist. And so, yeah, I mean, it's best to understand all of those. And if we have a seated judge because someone's written in by two people, then that's fine. If not, then at least we have a game plan in place to move forward.
When does a person have to come forward? I know somebody is an attorney and.
They're write-in at this point. The deadline
Yeah, right,
was
right.
already, so the deadline already happened.
Yes.
Anybody can come forward, and if they meet the ordinance and statutory requirements, then they'd be a write-in. So they could come in at any point.
Would they have to be pre-qualified before a write-in?
Pre-qualified, you mean to make sure that they...
And so somebody doesn't just show up and think it's funny and two of the neighbors vote for the guy in the neighborhood they don't like? I mean, he doesn't have to be this
Yeah.
person.
No, you don't have to, you don't have to vet them.
Signatures or
If there's somebody that were to win and they weren't qualified by statute and by ordinance, then there would be a vacancy just at that point.
All right.
Now, if there was somebody that was qualified, I mean, we can talk about this at that meeting, but if there was somebody that was qualified, that would give us, that would fit one of our options. I think that would fit an option. But no, there is no pre-qualification before somebody would be able to run as a write-in.
Okay. So I guess, I don't know what the rest thinks, Tuesday the 25th, can everybody meet at, say, 5 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock?
I may be a little bit late, but I'll try my hardest to be there at 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Tuesday the 25th.
yeah, Tuesday the 25th, we'll move that to 5 o'clock.
Okay, I will communicate that to our court clerk then, who is the one that's communicating to, with Saratoga. So that can be relayed first thing tomorrow morning.
And we'll plan to meet at the fire department and run on the TV with Zoom like we have in the past, if Saratoga has the ability to do that. I mean, if they want to come in person, by all means, they're more than welcome, but
So for purposes of our agenda, I mean, it'll be partially worked out as we understand if Saratoga is going to join, but for purposes of our agenda, I will work then to put together an agenda that is going to be a town board agenda for 5 o'clock with agenda items to include. That's my segue. One is this conversation. Another one is ARPA. Is there anything else that you want on that agenda?
And I think those two will be lengthy to begin with.
Thank you.
okay. Any other, you done?
I am, thank
Okay,
you.
any other future agenda items?
The auction items,
Building inspector, auction items, okay, and I think bike share didn't make it this month, so we'll put it on for next month for Amber. Anything else everybody's got? All right, motion to adjourn.
make that motion.
Second, Andy, all approved?
Thank you.